Welcome to XSell Live. I'm your host, Cora Hart, and today we have special guest Greg Fowler, founder of Lionbolt Media, host of Real Estate Titans, and creator of Digital Lightning Master Course. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Cora, I'm super excited about this one. Absolute honor and a pleasure to be a guest in an honored situation here on XSell Live. So I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Well, it's great to have you, and we were just talking, and it's nice to get to see you and know you more as a person because I know you train all of our classes, which is great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what was put together through Chuck and Angela and everybody with XSell and the program, and everyone has their part to play and to really help real estate professionals grow and scale their business to the highest of levels from so many different places. Obviously, me looking at it from a digital marketing side, that's where my passion lies, and just helping so many professionals all over the world really achieve their wildest dreams through growth and scale with digital marketing. So I'd love to dive in anywhere you want me to, Cora.
So, how did you get started in digital marketing? What piqued your interest?
Yeah, that's a long story short. I've always been a nerd. When I tell that to people, I've just always been fascinated with how things work. Just from simple engineering standpoints, from like pulling things apart, like watches, or opening up computers and just kind of looking at things, tinkering. But the digital aspect of marketing just kind of spawned off of a means to an end, really understanding what entrepreneurs are looking for to grow and scale their business and how they can get that. And ultimately, every business owner, entrepreneur, whether you're in real estate or not, they need the exposure to their target demographics. They need that get to know, like, and trust sort of scenario, and obviously generate new clientele to bring in revenue and have profitability. So it's always been one of those things where I've been fascinated about and just kind of learning and growing and, educating and working with real estate professionals. Gosh, I've been in this particular niche for over a decade now. And, I don't know it all and I don't pretend to. And I say that every time I'm on stage or every time I'm on a podcast, learning every day, growing every day, and working with the best people does not hurt. So that's kind of the origin story, if you will, but the rest has been history.
Well, continuing to grow and figure out what works for real estate professionals, do you have advice on what really works and what tends to be the best strategy when you're posting and creating all this marketing?
Yeah, I mean, you always look at it from the standpoint, and when I tell people this, you got to start kind of at the very beginning. And so many professionals, they want to go right to the automation or the tool or the system that's gonna get it done faster, smoother, easier, and then bring in revenue. But if you really take it back to the beginning, is understanding who you are and who you serve. I think that's crucially important because how can you have a conversation with a potential client under any circumstances if you don't identify who they are, who you are, and how you can serve them, right? Because everyone has a current situation and a desired situation. And we have to figure out how we bridge that gap as professionals, especially into real estate. But so I would look at it from an identifier standpoint, identifying first and foremost before you start getting into the digital aspects, who you serve. And I like the adage of the 3%, right? So at any given time, there's a small percentage of the consumers from a real estate standpoint who can purchase, help us buy or sell a home at any given time. And to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to everyone. And that's kind of the big thing. Every real estate professional says, I want to be that go-to pro in this market, and I want to dominate this neighborhood or this zip code or this city or this state. The problem is there's so many target demographics, there's so many different types of buyers and sellers. It's very difficult to just try to cast that wide net. So identifying it based off of this story, I like to tell this. So imagine that you're a lion in the plains of the Serengeti and you have to eat, right, for survival. So if you think of it that way, there's two types of lions. There's a smart one and a not so smart one. So the not so smart one sees a herd of zebra out in the plains and says, I'm so hungry. I got to eat. I got to feed my family, my pride. I'm just going to attack, hunt, and gather all of these zebras simultaneously. The problem is, as soon as that lion lurches up and leans forward and starts running, it's going to scatter the herd. and they're going to try to attack everything all at once and get nothing. They're going to starve. Survival's not going to happen. So the smart lion understands that, and they're looking to solicit a reaction. So they stand up, they lean forward, and they're identifying the 3%, the slower, the wounded, the older, opportunities for them to hunt, feed, provide for their family, and survive. Now, the same principle applies. I'll bring it back to real estate. You don't want to be everything to everyone, and you don't need every buyer and every seller and every demographic. You need to identify the 3% that are ready to buy then and there, right? That have the highest level of intention to do a transaction. And the great thing about hunting and gathering or prospecting, physically or digitally, is you can do it over and over and over again, but do it with an intention of having that 3%. So now understanding that your message needs to solicit a reaction, same thing as the lion to the zebras. Let's take it to a physical conversation. If you have the same conversation physically with every buyer and every seller, just like every other real estate professional, it's not going to solicit a reaction. It's going to be white noise. It's going to blend in with the crowd. Why would I work with Greg? He's just like every other realtor out on the planet. He doesn't stand out in any form or fashion. I'm going to ignore this conversation physically and or digitally online. So I always use the adage into keeping it to the jungle, if you will, or at least the animal kingdom, a lion message versus a rabbit message. So the rabbit, if the rabbit was on that same scenario that we just discussed and ran full speed at that herd of zebras, screaming at the top of their lungs, the zebra would look down at the rabbit and say, what's wrong with you? Ignore it and keep grazing, right? So that's the problem with most real estate professionals, most entrepreneurs, is their message, their noise does not solicit a reaction, does not strike a nerve, does not make anyone move or look or really do anything. And they wonder why their business isn't growing. They wonder why their marketing isn't working. So it starts to the foundation of the message, obviously identifying that 3%. And then having a message that matters. So when you speak, when that lion gets up and leans forward, they solicit a reaction. Now we need to do that with our verbiage, right? Physically face to face with buyers and sellers and prospects, whether if it's agent attraction into that, right? So if you're looking at it from that standpoint too, you have to stand out and you have to strike a nerve. So once you understand that concept, all the rest of it is going to become a lot easier. So then if you go to the next step is identifying that 3%, because everyone's probably thinking right now, all right, Greg, I get your analogy. So I want to talk to the right people. Like that's nothing new. Okay, so how do you identify those right people? It comes back down to your message. If you have a conversation physically in front of a group of people, or if you post online, let's talk about the digital and physical, and it doesn't solicit an action, somebody really connecting with that in a meaningful way, then you're saying the wrong thing. You're posting the wrong thing. You're the rabbit, not the lion. So when you identify who you're speaking to, then you can craft a message that really connects with them in a meaningful way, that solicits a reaction that they're going to do something. So I'll give you this example. If you are working with, let's just say buyers, right? So if you're working with a first-time buyer and a luxury buyer, they're typically two different avatars, two different clientele, and they're usually in two different places in their lives. If you're a first-time home buyer, there's several reasons why you would actually get into that scenario. You're usually, earlier on in your life, maybe you just got married, maybe you're getting out of the parents' basement or leaving that house full of friends and you're getting your first place. There's so many different reasons, right? Usually it's early on in your life, typically. Now, a seasoned buyer, somebody in the high-end ultra luxury standpoint, there usually isn't their first rodeo. Typically it's not. So they've been through the process, but they're usually in different places financially, mentally, physically into their lives. You can't speak to both of those buyers the same way. You have to have a specific message and a feeling and an emotion for each one of them. So once again, to try to have a blanket, general, generic message, you're going to get general and generic results, which are horrible. So you need to craft messaging that speaks directly to your audience. And I always have this adage as the client avatar sort of scenario. Who is your ideal client? Where do they live? Where do they work? What's their family situation like? What's their lifestyle? Do that in that case, because if you start to develop certain niches or avatars, then you can create content on social media and digital marketing that's going to speak directly to those people. Now, once you have that identified, then you can hone in and say, okay, here's my ultra high-end luxury buyer or seller scenario. These are the people that I want to work with. Let's say it's sellers. I want to generate a bunch of listings. You have to get inside their head. You have to put yourself in their shoes. And you say, okay, if I am a luxury seller, what am I thinking right now? Why would I think about selling? What are my pros and cons? Why would I be doing this? What are the lifestyle changes that are associated with this? Am I relocating for a job promotion? Am I upsizing, right? Because our kids went away to college and now we're going to be empty nesters. Downsizing, I apologize. So there's so many different reasons just why somebody's going to sell that home. So identifying that ahead of time and putting that in the messaging, when I see that online, if it's a video, a photo, or copywriting text, and I happen to be targeted, because when you're using digital marketing, you can be very specific to who you're targeting. And I happen to come across that on my favorite social platform, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, doesn't matter what you're talking about. It's going to speak to me in a much deeper way because they're in my shoes. You're asking me the questions that I'm feeling and thinking and going through in my mind. I understand that you know who I am and what I'm dealing with. Then we can help you sell a house for this amount of money in this time frame. The general generic noise that they're sick of, the consumer sees everywhere, hears everywhere. So starting with the content itself, understanding who you are and who you serve, and then breaking those niches down, creating customized content for those niches, you're going to have massive amounts of success with digital advertising, marketing, or organic posting, right? Connecting in a meaningful way. But you can take that to the physical. The deeper you understand who you are and the deeper you understand your end user, the more communication you can have, and you can dive deeper into the get to know, like, and trust, right? You're just building that. You're breaking those barriers down, and you're going to have a much more effective business all the way through and through. Did that kind of answer that
Yes.
question in segments?
Yes. So now that, we know that we're dialing in exactly what we're trying to reach and making a specific audience and knowing what our audience is, how many platforms do you feel like it takes to make an impact?
Oh, I love that question. And so many people are wondering that same thing because, Cora, just like there's so many different digital platforms and there's so many different options, especially in the real estate. And you're thinking to yourself, gosh, which ones? Where we find the greatest saturation and effect is always based off of your niche. So I'll take it back to where we were. If you are speaking directly to the millennial generation, largest generation in the world, bigger than the baby boomers, there's certain demographics and sites that you need to be a part of, right? If that's your core demographic, you need to understand what sites they're on, how they're communicating, and what they want to interact with. So TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, you could look at it that way. And I'm not saying that those are younger worlds, right? Because there are all age ranges on all platforms, but there are demographics you can look at. For the most part, Facebook is a good catch-all. Facebook has been getting older, right? So biggest demographic, fastest growing demographic, 55 to 65-year-old females. Core demographic on Facebook is 35 to 55. As far as I'm concerned, it's a pretty decent punch. The Instagram user tends to go back and forth between Facebook and Instagram, but a lot of times they lean towards those one or two platforms that they stick with. You could have demographics on LinkedIn, depending on what professional networks you're a part of. It's known as the business social media platform. So I think ultimately you really need to understand who you're speaking to, age ranges, and then figure out where they're spending their time. But if I could narrow it down in a simple form, you pick one and you master it and you move on. Trying to do everything all at once is nuts. I know people do that and then they fail. They fall right on their face. That's okay. Failure is a part of success. But I guess if I had to narrow it down, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, those are my favorites. And again, no disrespect to TikTok, no disrespect to Snapchat. There's business to be had everywhere. I think that you just need to select a few. That would kind of be my answer, I guess, to that question.
So we've just decided which ones we're using. We've decided that we really need to be dialing in who our audience is. How many times do you recommend posting a week?
Yeah, great question. And I think that ultimately people get inside their own heads with this, and they think, oh gosh, I'm not that interesting. People don't care what I'm doing in my life. They don't care about my business. I'm just going to kind of be a fly on the wall, be that secret agent. Um, the more the merrier is the simple answer. I think into a basis of a minimum once a day, I think is what you might want to look for. But if you have the bandwidth, if you have the ability to create rich content, document rich content, and post several times a day, there's no hands off. I think this is a great Grant Cardone quote. It's not the best business, but the best known business that wins. And, your haters are always going to hate. So if that's a part that you might be thinking to yourself, gosh, I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. I don't want to be on photo. I don't want to be in video. I mean, look, that's how you look. That's how you sound. That's exactly what your client is going to see and hear. So you just need to get over it, get out of your own head, get out of your own way, and post as much as you're comfortable. But to me, some people go overboard with it and they become the boy who cries wolf. And I'll get to this because I think it's crucially important for everybody to hear. You could post 10 times a day, but if it's not interesting, thought-provoking, informative information, if it's not something that if you personally saw someone else post and you didn't engage, you wouldn't engage with it, you wouldn't like, comment, or share, you're just posting to post. It's like you're speaking just to speak. And what happens is if you do that too much without value or meaning, people block, they ignore, they defriend, right? It's the same thing in personal world. Like we've all known that person. It's like, oh no, not Dave again. Dave's coming. Shoot, I got to tie my shoe. I got to jump on a phone. Like every single time, you just want to kind of avoid that person because it's all about them. It's all about business. It's very self-serving. They're always trying to push something on you. You don't want that reputation physically, right? You want to be of value, light up the room when you come in. People are like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Cora's here. Oh shoot, I can't wait to catch up with her and see what's going on. Every time I talk to her, there's so much value. I learn more, I grow. That's what you're trying to accomplish physically. The same thing should happen online, right? So I always base it off of quality over quantity. Now, even though I just said once a day is recommended or as many as you can, right? I would rather see you post less with more value than a million times a day. So I think ultimately that is left up to you as the individual and the platform that you're posting on, and ultimately let the market speak, right? So if you select those niches that we spoke about, which I think are crucially important to do because you need to know your audience, you need to take yourself out of the equation for real estate because most consumers could care less about what's going on a daily basis, market updates and what's going on with interest rates, things like that, unless if they're in the market right then and there on a daily basis, years and years down the road, because people do this 5 to 7 years on average, right? Every 5 to 7 years, they need to get to know, like, and trust you. So that's where the 80-20 rule comes into play. That's a nice segue into this topic. If 80% of the time, Cora, you're posting interesting, thought-provoking, informative information that really has nothing to do with real estate, but more about who Cora is, that at the end of the day, that's who I believe in. That's who I'm getting to know, like, and trust is you as a person, you as a producer and a professional. I'm more likely to find a connection with you, right? These are based off of personal interests, likes and interests and family, whether you love to travel, you're a foodie, let's just say you're big into gardening or you love jet skiing. It doesn't matter what it is. I think finding and identifying those topics that you're truly passionate about. But guess what? Every time you post about mountain biking, every time you post about that new recipe that you just tried out, every single time you post that family outing that you did and the great hike, there's going to be somebody on the receiving end that can feel that you're a real person, that it's like, shoot, I love hiking too, Cora. Oh my gosh, you know what? I love that new coffee shop. I love trying new places out. That's something we're connecting with. It's not, here's another real estate market update. Here's a stat. Here's a new listing. Like, I have a hard time as a consumer connecting with that. But that's if that's your target demo, right? If you're reaching out to buyers and sellers, I think that that's important to understand that they're only buyers and sellers at certain times of their life. But they want to get to know, like, and trust Cora permanently. And then 20% of the time, when you do post that listing or that market update or the change in the industry or that client testimonial, they're more likely to listen. So but again, identifying your niche. If you're doing heavy agent attraction, right? If you're trying to attract the leaders, the best and the brightest minds in the real estate industry, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What do they need? What are their desires? What information is useful for them? That's not consumer based. That's to completely different types of content. So if that's the case, then you need motivation, right? You need inspiration. You need tactics and tools. You need systems for growth and development for their business. These are things they want to know. When can I get an edge? How can I grow my own business? How can I learn from that? That's people want to work with the best and brightest. So again, knowing who your end user is crucially important, but then creating content that's customized for them, but is still genuinely you. And that's the big mistake that I see so many people do is they're like, okay, well, I want to talk to these groups of people. I don't really know too much about it, so I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to fake it till you make it sort of thing. And changing your nature is one of the worst things that you can do. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be in their exact identical shoes. Everybody's at a different level, no matter where you're at in your life and your career. I think showing genuine passion and interest and giving of nature, people are going to latch onto that. Light attracts light. And that's what I love this conversation about. I'm going to give Paula a shout out. Paula, if you're watching this, she's an XSell student, absolutely phenomenal. And I had a conversation with Paula, and she developed a brand, and I love this because she's very true to herself. And I'm using this as an example of there's a level of alienation that you want to have happen. And here's what it is. Paula, her tagline, and hopefully I don't mess this up. She is the bourbon drinking, cigar smoking, motorcycle riding, silver-haired granny realtor. Now, if you don't like cigars or bourbon or motorcycles, and if you're not a grandmother, you probably won't connect with Paula. And in fact, if you don't like those things, you might be turned off from Paula, but that's okay because there's massive communities in those niches that Paula's identified that connect with her in a very deep, meaningful way with mutual interests in mind. They're getting to know, like, and trust one another inside those niches. And Paula is uniquely herself. And that's the point. We don't need everyone. We don't want everyone. We don't need to speak to everyone and connect with everyone. 3%. We need the 3%. Full circle back to the beginning. But again, being true to your nature is the best possible thing that you can do. And it takes time to get comfortable. I get it. We're all people. There's nerves involved. I don't know what to say. Something that I always tell everybody is no matter what you can imagine or think of, somebody's created it. Somebody's already figured it out. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look to your peers. Look to your colleagues. Look inside your brokerage, outside your brokerage. Look nationally, internationally, wherever you need to go. There are top producers in every market that are hitting the highest of levels, and they've already been through the brain damage. Just emulate. It's a Picasso quote. There's no such thing as great artists, only great thieves. You don't have to figure it out. It's done. So when it comes to the branding and the niches and the messaging, find people that you connect with and make your own version of that. Paint your own picture. Not to be too philosophical, but I think that that's important to use that and let technology work for you. Leverage it. That's a big topic. That's a part.
You teach like squeeze pages and landing pages and all these other things. Out of those tools, how often do you think that they need to be updated on your social media or posted so that you're grabbing those leads?
Yeah, I love that Corey, you're the best. We're kindred spirits, just kind of ebbing and flowing together. So I think that when you base off of landing pages, squeeze pages, funnels, anything along those lines, there has to be a place for people to go. And anybody who's listening to this or watching this now with us live, if you're not sure what we're talking about, a landing page, a squeeze page, a funnel is just a digital site. It's a website that's out there just like your traditional www.com domain, but there's intentionality with it. There's always calls to action. So when we talk about everything that we just mentioned, right, building a brand, understanding your niche, your offer, your result, really connecting with the consumer in a meaningful way, physically, digitally, once you start to build a brand, you've got to drive the traffic somewhere. You don't want to be the coolest person in the room, but no one really knows how to use you, or even if they wanted to, really knows how to get a hold of you. So that's where you should always drive your traffic to a consistent location. So landing pages, squeeze pages, or funnels are a great way for you to do that. There's all kinds of phenomenal tools inside KV Core that you can utilize. And I think that's important too. Always look to what's in front of you. So many people are always looking for that next shiny object, but they don't quite realize that there's the right thing, the right tool is right in front of you. So analyze and adjust what's in front of you first before you start looking elsewhere. But I will tell you that no place is perfect. No site is perfect. No automation is perfect. No landing page is perfect. So you got to test it out. The market speaks, right? So if you're generating results, if you're putting in the work, doing it the right way, and you're generating the results you're looking for, there's no need to make changes. But if you're doing the work, you're following the processes, but you're not quite seeing the results you're expecting, then something's going on. It's either the input that you're giving, right? The work that you're doing, or it's the vessel. You got to figure it out and then rework it. So when we talk about driving traffic that way, I think it's crucially important to use a funnel instead of a website, because think of a funnel as a constant salesperson on your behalf. So whether you're organically driving traffic to a landing page or you're paid ads into a landing page, right? So you're generating your niche and you're constantly getting in front of them with a brand and a message. And then they finally get to this landing page. There's bounce rate. People go to a website and there's a million tabs. They don't really know why they're there in the first place, really, maybe to watch a video or check out some testimonials, but they bounce, they leave. The attention span is very small. I appreciate anybody who's watching this now for at least 26 minutes with Cora and I, because that's a long time. So when you have a landing page or a squeeze page or a funnel, it's very specific calls to action for very specific groups of people. So back to the beginning, if you're talking to ultra high-end luxury sellers, you should have a message that resonates with them organically through social media or paid ads, which we haven't even talked about. But if you're running ads and you're driving traffic to that funnel should be specifically for them. Not a catch-all, not a one-size-fits-all. You need to keep that message all the way through and through. Yeah, it requires more work. It requires more effort. But if you want to hit the highest of levels, you got to put in the work. There's no elevator to the top. You got to take the stairs. I mean, there's no other way to break it down. But I will tell you, if you do the right systems, the right tools, the right processes, you'll see results. So when they get to that landing page is for them. They've seen your brand. They've gotten to know, like, and trust you. They saw that ad or organic post, and now they're taking another step. You're shrinking that percentage, right? You're trying to identify that 3%. So you're starting from the beginning and bringing it all the way home. So when they go to the landing page, there's specific calls to action to watch a value video, to opt in if they like what they heard, if they want more information, to schedule an appointment, right? People don't take it there. People don't make it easy. So they just expect it to flood through. Yeah, meet me anytime. I'll do that. You got to let the consumer know, hey, if you like what you saw and something connected with you and you really want to get this going, go to the next page, pick a date and time that works for you on my calendar, and then we'll get together face-to-face, over the phone, over Zoom, and we'll get this done. We'll sell your house. We'll go through everything that we do. After that step, there's a survey, right? So now you're shrinking it. You're making them jump through hoops because no one wants to qualify and qualify and qualify and qualify over and over. The highest and best use of time. So real estate professionals are out there with buyers, with sellers, negotiating deals, getting them closed, putting out fires. It's not trying to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. This is where automation and leverage comes in. If you're running ads and you're driving traffic to your niches and people are opting in to your forms and going through your funnels, and all of that is done for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, without you touching a single thing, the only time you're notified is at the very end. They went in, they filled out the information, they picked a date and time in your calendar, and they filled out a survey. They're going to show up and ready for that call. Then you pass it off to your team or you take that. You show up, either way. But that's the importance of a landing page or a squeeze page, is because you've got to set this up in such a way where it's a system that you're not having to manage and babysit, that you can put it on autopilot. But a lot of people don't do it because there's a lot of heavy lifting up front. That's called front loading. So you got to know your brand. You got to have an offer. You got to have a niche. You got to create rich content, photos, videos, copywriting. You got to build the funnels. You got to set up the systems. You got to put the ads out there. That's a lot of work. So I get it where people are coming from, but you can do it. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a nerd. You don't have to hire us, a company like us, at all. There's systems upon systems that you can watch. There's nerds on YouTube for free that'll teach you anything. I'm one of those nerds. I mean, I share everything. You just call me up, DM me, I'll share whatever you need. But I think that that's the important thing, is having it from start to finish. And so many people want to have that end result, but without putting all that additional steps in there. And some people just don't know what they need to do. Cora, that's the tricky thing, is like, oh, that sounds nice, but I don't even know where to start. Wouldn't know how to create that. It's really not that tough. It's just putting the time and blocking it out.
So do you think there's such a thing as too much information then? So you shouldn't maybe throw everything that you like into one pile. You should kind of filter it out and separate it into separate posts and separate target audiences. So you could possibly make more than one, have 2 or 3.
I always recommend doing that. So if you identify a few different niches, right? A few different avatars, then just imagine, okay, if I'm the end user of that message, would I like it? Would I comment on it? Would I share it? Would I connect with it? Would I do whatever call to action is there? Would I pick up the phone? Would I schedule an appointment? If the answer is no, you're not doing yourself any favors by just being the boy who cries wolf, just by copying and pasting something that you saw on some blog that you don't even know if it really works. I mean, that's the tricky part about it. And sometimes it can take time. I mean, the seasoned pros are the seasoned pros for a reason. 20 years ago, none of this technology existed. 20 years ago, it was all physical, right? And the leverage points have always been there. They still are, but there's one more, to my knowledge: people and systems, right? So if you're scaling your business, the first thing you do is you hire an assistant, you hire a TC, you bring on a buyer's agent, right? You hire support staff, right? Physical bodies to take things off of your plate so that you can do what your highest and best uses of your time are. That's leverage, right? So layer 2 is systems. Put systems in place so that the physical bodies don't have to work so hard, your employees, your staff. And that's how the top producers have grown and leveraged, not to mention they're people, right? They're knocking on doors, they're making phone calls, they're involved in the community. None of that should ever go away. This is a people business. But what we've found over the years, the past 10 years specifically, the fastest growing real estate professionals in the world are less than 10 years in the business, absolutely dominating their market, past the 20, 30-year vets. And they're getting there because they're leveraging technology. So they're using people, they're using systems just like the seasoned vets, but now adding technology, digital aspects, leverage points, building funnels, creating content, getting in front of thousands of people a week instead of maybe a few hundred if you were lucky, depending on how networked you are. This is leveraging your brand. This is leveraging your message. And again, in a local community, you want to be the physical mayor. You want to know everyone, right? You want everyone to know you, more importantly, but also like and trust you, right? It's the old adage, oh, well, it's not what you know, it's who knows you. And at the end of the day, well, no, but they have to know you, like you, and trust you. I mean, they could know you and not like you. That's not a good thing. So the physical part of that still remains. But the great thing about digital aspects, like Cora, you and I have never physically met each other, but like I felt like I've known you forever. And the conversations that we have are super great. I see you in XSell all the time. This is a digital relationship that we forged, right? And this happens every single day. And the more
becoming more common, this is how we connect with the world. It's kind of crazy. I never would have guessed this 10 years ago, but
no, I mean, think about it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, it's crazy. And
I don't want to date myself, but I didn't even have a cell phone in high school. They didn't exist yet.
I love that. No, but seriously, Cora, if you think about it, technology has evolved business and relationships and everything in between. And But I always tell everybody, don't become a slave to it. Don't feel like it's a burden. Let it work with you. Let it help you get more physical relationships, get in front of more people. That's what it's all about. This is just the
I
starting,
agree.
you
So,
know.
what suggestions do you have before we end? For a lot of people like to Google things. They want to know what your history is, what your experience is, and if you're actually knowledgeable at what you do. So, if you're a new agent, how do you overcome that when you don't have a lot of previous presence?
Oof, great question. Everyone starts somewhere. What I always mention is perception is reality. So if you are a newer professional just getting in, you don't have that long standing, I've been in the business for 20 years or 30 years and I've done, thousands of transactions. You don't. So essentially you're positioning yourself for future greatness. You've got to build certain sites, right? You've got to leverage out main websites. If you don't have a website in today's day and age, you don't exist to the majority of the population. Page one of Google is crucially important. I'm not saying go and spend a bunch of money on pay-per-click and do any of those things. Organic traffic is what you're looking for. One of the largest standpoints or footprints inside page one is social media. So build those social media platforms that we mentioned. Set up a personal and business Facebook page. Set up an Instagram account. Start a YouTube channel, right? Even if you're not posting content regularly, you're going to start to crawl on the search engines if you're posting in Twitter, right? Whether you like Twitter or not, it's one of the highest pushes on Google Images is based off Twitter's feed. Don't ask me why, it just is. So when you're basing it off of, if you're new, set up platforms, be consistent with your brand and content. Get professional headshots, right? You don't have to spend a fortune on really dynamic content right off the bat, because I'm a firm believer of making money and building revenue first, taking a percentage of that and reinvesting it into the future growth. Marketing and good visuals are crucially important. It should be one of the first investments that you do, because your first impression is all you've got. Physically, right? When you walk into a coffee shop and you're meeting with a buyer, seller, or a potential recruit, right off the bat, there's prejudgment. It's a first impression. How we walk, how we talk, how we look, our body language, how we smell, all these different things play factors into a first impression. People develop that 30 seconds, 2 minutes. It's the same thing online. So to your question, if somebody Googles a new agent and there's nothing, it's a ghost town, it's not a good first impression. There's no testimonials. That's not good either, right? So you want to build those platforms up as soon as you can. Testimonials comes up quite a bit. Well, I haven't worked with any buyers or sellers yet. That's fine. Look to your peers that you've worked with in prior occupations. Let's just say that it was for you, Cora. And let's just say that you and I used to work together, or we're just buddies and I've known you for a long time. I could write a review for you right now. I could say, Cora is one of the most genuine and honest people I've ever met in my life. She's always on time. She always has a happy spirit about her. And I would trust her with anything to do with business or any venture that she's going into. That has nothing to do with
That's a great point right there.
selling a home or buying a home. It's vouching for your intangibles. You're trustworthy, you're loyal. You can reach out to past people. Now, you don't want direct family members with the same last name because that just looks weird. But that's where you start. Reach out to 5 or 10 people in your past life and have them vouch for your intangibles. Now, they can't write a review on Zillow because you have to be a physical buyer or seller. They can't do it on realtor.com, but they can write a review for you on your Facebook page. They can write a review for you on your Google account, your Yelp page, right? And as far as I'm concerned, you want to build them up and pepper them. Now, you want to make it a habit when you're working with buyers and sellers at some point, because you will, to get that in video and text format, get photos with your clients, build up that social proof. Because Cora, you and I could think that we're the best thing ever, right? And we could be so passionate about who we are and what we do. But ultimately, people make purchase decisions on the smallest and largest of items based off of peer recommendations. And I always base that off of an interesting thought is, let's just say that you're looking to buy a new fridge because you've had it for a while and it dies. And now it's time to do that. So you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy, you talk to some people that way, and you narrow it down to 2 refrigerators. One's a Samsung, one's an LG. And let's just hypothetically say they're both the same price. Let's say they're both $3,500, right? The LG has 500, 3.5 stars, right? and the Samsung has 5,000 5 stars. They're both $3,500. We all know which fridge you're going to buy every single time. And guess what? You're buying a product and a service that, let's say, you've never owned before, and you're trusting strangers that you've never met before. And that's how we're making purchase decisions off of everything. Trust me when I tell you, people are doing the same off of real estate professionals. And they're not just taking the word of their buddy or their family member. They're still going to throw it into Google. They're still going to check things out. And to the earlier point, if you're consistent with your brand and your message, and you're hitting your community with value and building that brand and reputation, when they're ready to buy or sell, they're not going to ask anybody. Because Cora was in front of me the whole time. I've gotten to know, like, and trust her. She's at least in the running, right? Let's just say somebody in my church group is a realtor. But guess what? I've gotten to know Cora over the past 4 years, and I just think she's really cool. I'm at least going to reach out to the two of them. Now at least you've got a shot. It's all about posturing and positioning that way, but being your genuine self, right? Not fabricating anything, but ultimately just trying to represent yourself to the highest and best levels, whatever level you are at, whether you're brand new or you're a seasoned pro. And I'm telling you, the seasoned pros, I use that term loosely, they kind of sit back. They're like, hey, I've kind of built my brand. I don't really know if I need to push it. If you're not pushing it, you're shrinking. There's no such thing as maintenance. You cannot maintain in this business. You're either growing or you're shrinking. There's nothing in between. So I feel like the seasoned pro has such a massive opportunity because they have that reputation. They have that tenure. Now they just got to put that to further work. And so no matter where you're at, whether you're brand new or seasoned, there's work to be done always. So hopefully that helped.
That was great. Actually, I think you gave a lot of great information. I'm sure that there was another hour worth of conversations we could have had. I'm sure I have about 500 more questions for you.
I am always honored to be here, Cora. And yeah, anytime I would love to jump on. I could nerd out on anything digital marketing and advertisement.
We might have to get deeper next time.
I'm totally down.
I'm going to count that you're going to be back on here in a few months, and we'll definitely do this again. I appreciate you taking the time today to talk to everybody, and I hope that everybody got a lot of information and content out of that.
Awesome.
So I appreciate your time, Greg, and you have a great day.
Likewise, Cora, you too. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.